I use a service called Leadsy, and it lets me get access to all their accounts in a couple of clicks. And so it takes them just like a minute or two where they just go, yep, accept. I've seen a lot of Go High Level dashboards just inside of our mastermind. I'd say probably about 50% of the people in there are Go High Level users. Unknown to me is he had tracking code in his site header to track all his visitors. Here we go. Do you smell what Big Daddy is cooking? You come in here running your mouth. Excited to be back with you guys. Man, like I feel like the cool stuff happening in our world right now, at least for me, is exponentially increasing, which is really, really cool to see. Well, so much of the world is headed the other direction. The masses and stuff, like there seems like recession and all these kind of things are getting to them. But in you guys, you know, I was just commenting this for myself. I actually made a post the other day. I don't know how many of you guys saw it, but it just like, hey, if I've had an impact on you. I was actually just hoping to get a few of you guys to write my bio. We had a few mastermind members as well as a lot of you guys inside our main group saying just, you know, it's been life-changing. In so many different ways, you know, like we had Justin there who was speaking on stage. You know, Dave messaged me and told me, you know, he's getting $100,000 people. My man Cole is here on the mic. And just the amount of cool things, you know, I just saw a post today. One of our members is saying, I'm ready to make 1.2 million working 10 to 15 hours a week, having my kind of people and just have business be kind of fun and relatively easy, doing the shit I want to do. The fact that, you know, those doors of possibility are opening. So those are a couple of things we're doing inside the mastermind. For those of you guys who are interested, you can always check it out. Go to beyondagencyprofits.com/Wolfpack. And there's video there for you guys to check out. And covers, you know, just kind of what we're doing. But I'm really blown away for real just by... this is why I do what I do, is like, you know, those thank you messages in the middle of the night are pretty addicting, to be honest, and it gives you a real sense of meaning and purpose. And I think businesses are a lot better when they're purpose driven, and that those purposes don't have to be these like, I'm going to launch rockets to the moon, gigantic. Like I'm a big believer in small but meaningful whys. And the more you start to like realize you can really change people's life one at a time for the better, and really see that, like it becomes, that's when entrepreneurship, at least for me, becomes fun, becomes like something where it's like you look forward to it every day. So I hope more and more you guys who are interested in that, if you're interested in checking that out, the whole less laptop, more beach lifestyle, like I said, beyondagencyprofits.com/Wolfpack. Anyways, let's get into the good stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Frankie Finn proudly brings you our weekly Q&A. Little bit of morning silliness here. It's 11:30. I guess it's barely morning, but we got some amazing questions in store for you guys and the stuff you guys are building. Let's see. Josiah's up first. Says, do you guys have some SOPs for onboarding clients, building websites, SEO setup, etc.? I can write one, but I figured if you guys had one as lead gen, I'd play with it, just trying to duplicate myself. Firstly, Josiah, your last comment, just trying to duplicate myself, is a fucking writer-downer, because that's what you want your agency to do. The more you can duplicate yourself, the less you need to be the one doing everything. That is actually the deeper idea behind when we created these 5-minute Loom videos, is I wanted to be able to duplicate myself, where I could, you know, be making sales presentations with people and covering the basics, but not always having to do it, right? I wanted to duplicate myself through video. And so you are correct. I've actually toyed with this idea in the mastermind of getting everybody's onboarding stuff set up, and it was a little bit tricky because we have people doing different things. Like onboarding for web design is different than onboarding for SEO. It's different than onboarding for Google Ads. It is different than onboarding for Facebook ads. So I'm going to give you the short form of understanding what it is you're actually supposed to document, and I'm going to give you the easiest way to do that, okay? So the first thing is understanding what you are supposed to document, and this is made up of two things, okay? I believe that the first thing you should do, and this is there's really two parts, okay? So part one is what I call the grand welcome. I believe in welcome aboard, not on board. And then the second thing is what most traditional agencies think about onboarding, which is, can I get your passwords? Can I get all the information I need to get started? If you're building a website, like I need these pictures, I need this information, I need an About Us page. Whatever that information is, I like your dreams, Brother Hetty. So those two things, when you put them together, again, grand welcome and documents. And the more you can systematize and organize, and by the way, this can be done in 5, maybe 10 fucking minutes, okay? So it doesn't have to be this long, drawn-out thing. And the way to do that is the next time you do this for a client, fire up the screen recording software and explain what you were doing. So the grand welcome, what we like to do in our agency is typically when a new client signs up, is I send them both a welcome letter in the mail that's a handwritten note. We use a service called Handwritten. It costs $3. We send a handwritten letter in the mail. They think I was sitting on the rooftop, but actually the message is standardized. The only thing we change is their first name. We personalize a sentence, I should say. But my VAs do that, and it just gets out the door. It costs me $3. My credit card's saved on file, and boom, we get a letter in the door. We also order edible arrangements for clients so that like 3 hours later, 4 hours later, they get a knock at the door. And I don't send the fruit baskets that they're known for. I send like cookies and brownies and stuff like that. But, there's a knock at the door, and then the office is like, who's that? What's there? And then all of a sudden, like, there's somebody saying, hey, welcome. All right, so we do that. It takes us 5 minutes, 10 minutes, maybe, and it's done by a virtual assistant. And all it is a documented process. Every single time, as soon as the client signs up, send the edible arrangement, send the letter in the mail. That's it, okay? Second thing is, you want to get their passwords and things like that. What I like to do, and I'm not saying this is the only way, there's more than one way to be successful at this, but what I'm a big believer in is make it as simple as fucking possible for the client, because they're busy and they have shit going on. So what we like to do is I use a service called Leadsy, and it lets me get access to all their accounts in a couple of clicks. And so it takes them just like a minute or two where they just go, yep, accept. Boom, we're in their accounts. And so in a matter of 5 or 10 minutes, the client has signed up from us, and there's somebody giving them cookies, welcoming them. A couple of days later, they get a handwritten note that says, I'm really honored to have you, and it's handwritten, so it feels very old school, very unexpected. And then also the setting up accounts is like easy and straightforward. I'm a big believer in like, do those two things. Welcome them and make it easy to get all the information. If you do those two things, you're gonna have a lot of clients stay for a lot longer, and they'll see you as a lot more professional and organized and all those kind of things. So I'm not saying that's the only way to do it, but if you do that, you can duplicate yourself. So what I do is I take our grand welcome and get our passwords, and I document those things, and then I put VAs in charge of those. That's how you onboard at scale and duplicate yourself. It's at least our way. I shouldn't say it's the only way. Take the good ideas that work for you, and then roll with those. Levi. I'm going to go with Levi. Levi sounds cooler. Hey, has anyone here used Go High Level? If so, what are your thoughts on it? I'm currently using ActiveCampaign, debating swapping over. One big question I had, is there a way to have personal Facebook Messenger chats appear as a conversation in Go High Level? I have a client that posts to the Facebook Marketplace 3 times a day, so that would be amazing to have those conversations easily available in one spot for their business messages in Go High Level. Levi, this is a smart way to do it. I'm not a Go High Level user personally. I'm like, we're trying to simplify our agency and move away from software. This is probably just the PTSD. I've learned 10 to 30 new software tools a year since 2007. I'm sick of software. I'm sick of them. Like if you wait long enough, every 3 years there's something newer, better, and you got to stay up with the latest, greatest thing. For the most part, I'm like trying to do it old school, no software, no people, all those kind of things, or no tools like that. Having said that, I've seen a lot of Go High Level dashboards just inside of our mastermind. I'd say probably about 50% of the people in there are Go High Level users. It's for you. The biggest things I found Go High Level being useful are, like you said, having one inbox in one place where you only have to check one messages. I don't believe it can do Facebook Personal Messenger, but I do believe it can do Facebook Business Page. Don't quote me on that. I am not a Go High Level user. Check into that. They have an awesome community on Facebook where you can ask that exact question. Secondly, I think they're really good for onboarding and the things we just mentioned. And as well, thirdly, the thing I think they're really good for, and probably the most important feature, is clients suck at nurturing their leads, and following up with people and doing it in a timely fashion, and Go High Level can close that gap for you. Like, for example, I would get lawyers in the beginning that they would get a lead on Friday afternoon and call them back Monday afternoon and think it's okay 3 days later to call somebody back. That person has moved on. But using the magic of technology and Go High Level, you can send a text message 30 seconds after they request information, follow up with them. So that, I think, are the reasons to use it. Having said that, depending on how you're using it, it might not make sense. But I would say join their community, check it out. They got an awesome community. Sean Clark is like always interacting with their members and trying to find the latest, greatest news stuff to help you guys. So, I'm all for it. Go there. That's all I got for you, my man. Michael says, hi all, how would you up your budget on an advert that is working really well? I once duplicated the advert and it didn't do anything. I was recommended up the budget $2.50 per or £2.50 per day and do this every week over the budget. We'll get bigger. Thanks in advance. Michael, I'm going to give you some counterintuitive Facebook advice, okay? And again, I always like to mention there's more than one way to be successful with this. So I never want to tell you guys like this is the one way and if you do it my way you'll be successful. But having said that, I think it'll make your life a lot fucking easier to do it the Frankie Finn way. So for years I followed all the Facebook ads advice, all of it, which says only scale your winners by this much, make sure to duplicate it, blah blah blah. And what ends up happening, by the way, if you do that, you have a mountain of ads to manage because you're running like a gazillion fucking split tests. It's going slow as fucking molasses because you're only inching up your winners a little bit each day to not piss off the algorithm. And the whole fucking thing is like misery because you're logging into your ad manager. You're constantly tweaking and playing with ads. And that's the opposite of me of less beach, more laptop. Or more laptop, or more beach, less laptop. What up, Nikki Two Angels? So, this is my way of saying, I came across a guy like, I don't know, 6 years ago named Brad's Ads. I think the guy's last name is Campbell, Brad Campbell. And he was talking about like, I'm so sick of all that. And I really think if you're spending $1,000 a day or more, you need to test everything on Facebook ads. But for the vast majority of you, you need to test one big fucking offer and that's it. And one targeting and one message and one image. And I always say, like, you can test the number of awesome ideas you have. I usually have between 1 and 3 awesome ideas max. And 3 is like the max at a time. And for the most part, when I run Facebook ads, my life has gotten so much easier since I started listening to Brad. And this is how we approach ads in general, is like I just run one fucking really awesome ad. And I don't try and run like 8,000 split tests and winners and blah, blah, blah. You'll just make your life so much easier. So that's my way of saying whoever told you only scale your winners by $2.50 a day, fuck that. Come up with one great hook. We forget ads are a vehicle to connect with people. There's a person on the other side of that ad. The better you understand the person, the better you understand right ads. We like to think it's about the algorithm. I'm not saying they don't play a factor. Everything in there plays a factor. But I found if you nail 4 things in Facebook ads, you nail your targeting, you nail your offer, you nail the picture, and you nail the little bit of messaging. If you just nail those 4 things, your ads will fucking work. So that's my way of saying, like, do less but better. One fucking great ad. Just put all your money on one great ad. If it doesn't work, pause it, try again. But instead of this, like, inch it like pennies a day, fuck that. Just one great ad, and like, don't be afraid to scale it aggressively when it works. Huyin, my girl, what's up? The Golfing Champ says, what types of tests will be the most effective for attention to detail for account manager candidates? This is such a smart question, by the way, for those of you guys who don't know this, because what I found is on resumes and shit like that, like when you get into the stages where you're hiring people and people will tell you like basically like, I work good in a team, I'm a professional, blah, blah, blah. The fastest way I've ever found to really find out if people are full of shit or not is to test them. So Perry Marshall calls this the audition, right? Like if you think about a band, if you wanted to play in a band and you showed up, they wouldn't say, well, give us your resume and tell us about the last 5 bands you played with. Fuck that. That would be a waste of everybody's time. What they do is they test you on the spot. You get your guitar out or your drums and you fucking play a song and we see how you guys fit together, right? It is no different in a company. So we've gone phoneless and meetingless on our hiring, and the way we've done that is to test for details. So one of the simplest ways is, I learned this from one of my mentors, is he would post a job ad and it would be super detailed. And in the bottom it would say, if you actually read this job ad, I want you to write the word apples in all capital letters at the top of your cover letter. And this did two things, right? It made half the people don't put apples. So you know they didn't even read your ad, you can throw it out. Secondly, there's another group of people who will write apples, but not in all capital letters, and that's a fucking attention to detail kind of thing. So you test them on that, and you can throw those resumes out, and then you can look at the 10 or 15 who are left. What ends up happening is, a lot of times, is like, I call them resume bombers. And we've all been there. Like, I at some point in my life, like, I'm looking for a job. I don't really care which job I get. I'm just passing out resumes. Whoever happens to call me back and says, I'll pay you, that's who I'm going to work for. And there's nothing wrong with that. But you don't usually want to build your company with people who are just looking for any old job. You want people who are a specific fit for you. And the best way to do that is battle test them. So I'll give you an example. This is how we used to do it in our SEO agency. It occurred to me at some point that like 90% of the work that people were doing was writing articles and posting them. Now, this was old days where GMBs didn't rank at the top, and there used to be more websites, and so we built a lot more links and things like that. But I just want to give you an idea of the thought process behind it, because you can use this in any agency. So what I found is 90% of the day, writing articles and posting it. When it occurred to me, like, I want to test people to see if they're a good fit, it, like, the light bulb went on when I was like, well, if they're writing articles and posting it, why don't you make the trial assignment, the paid trial assignment, to write an article and post it? And lo and behold, I could give them 2 or 3 different article assignments, and they would have to write it and post it. My man, Rob Ramoni, Thug Moni up in the house, dude. I saw you living it up. Got the new lady. I know we haven't talked much, but I'm mostly just drowning in the newborn phase, but I love you, my dude. Anyways, so just to get a little back on track, but Perry Marshall, you want to audition people. Do not interview anyone ever, because you won't fucking learn anything from an interview. You know why? Because some people are really bad at interviews and they're good employees. And some people are really good at interviews. I'm one of them, and I'm a shitty employee. And you don't learn anything from it. So the best thing you can do is, if 20 people apply, just say, I'll pay you $5 to go write an article and post it. And you can judge them based on the work. And then what ends up happening is, I usually give a second or a third trial assignment. It ends up costing you $100 or $200, but you end up with the best candidate, best fit out of like the 20 or 30 people who apply, or however many people you get. So test them on those little attention to details is the point of this rant. Tom says, Hi folks. I joined this group because I'm a Frankie fan. Appreciate you, Tom. I've been enjoying the conversation for a couple of years now, but never thinking I would need anything from anyone here. But I've been trying to hire a lead generation conversion expert. I found one who used LinkedIn, though I'm not sure that's the best way to go. I'm not adverse to advertising if that's the best way to go. My specialty is helping personal injury lawyers in the United States. My desire is to get 4 to 6 qualified appointments a week. Can anyone help me do that? Tom, especially because I know you, my dude, but I want to answer this in a way where it can actually also be simultaneously helpful for other folks in there. So for those of you guys who don't know Tom and I have spoken at a few stages at different lawyer conferences. That's how we first met, a couple of masterminds and stuff like that. He's a really smart guy who helps injury lawyers with his consulting to get more referrals by like making it a mandatory part of doing business. If you want to work with me, you got to send me 2 or 3 people, over the next 5 years. Okay, so anyways, for those of you guys who are out there and like want to get appointments, blah, 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 I'm a bigger believer. I don't know why everybody thinks like cold outreach is this magic fucking bullet. It works, but it's like, to me, it's the equivalent of like modern day digital door knocking. So when I was a kid, I used to knock on them doors and I'd go, hey, I'd sell chocolate bars. I was like 13, 14 years old. It was for the blind. We'd knock on the door, and I had a cooler full of chocolate, and I would open it up, and I'd say, hey, Mr. or Mrs., would you like to buy one of these? And sometimes they would say, no, fuck you. And sometimes they would say, yeah. And what ended up happening is 4 or 5 hours a day, I would knock on doors, and I would usually, as a kid, I'd take home like $50, which was huge for me back then in those days. So I was making like $10 an hour knocking on all these doors, and I was only 14 years old. So once I made enough money to afford candy and video games, I had no more need to make money, and I got bored with selling chocolates. But having said that, That is like literally the most energy inefficient way in human history to fucking build a business. Digital door knocking. Let's just message 1,000 people and knock on enough doors. If you do that, by the way, who ends up saying yes to it? Are the buyers, right? If you think about back in the day, people used to sell encyclopedias and vacuums like this. If you knock on 1,000 doors, like 3 people might buy vacuum cleaners, and those are the people who buy a lot of vacuum cleaners anyway, right? So, but what I want to show you guys is the hack for this, okay, which will make your life so much fucking easier, is every now and then, our boss, who was kind of a dick back in those days, he was a real dick, for real. Like, he rode us kids hard. But he would go to the supermarket. There's a supermarket chain called Zehrs in Windsor, Ontario, Canada. And he would go to Zehrs and he would say to the manager, he would say, hey, we're selling chocolate bars for the blind. Is it okay if my kids stand outside and offer them to your people? And every now and then, the manager would say, all right. And I'll tell you, you would sell more chocolate bars in like 20 minutes of standing outside of Zehrs than you would in 4 hours of fucking door knocking. And, this is not a small detail, people came to you. People came to us without having to chase, without having to hustle, without having to pursue. And there's a simple reason for this, okay? Zehrs already has flow. All day long, people are going out. Not just flow, but buyer's flow. They're going in and out to buy food. So it only makes sense they would buy chocolate bars because they went to the store with the intention of buying food, right? Like that's why they're there, right? And so we have a very complimentary add-on offer. So the way you use this, and I've been kind of like harping on this in the mastermind, but I figured out now this week, by the way, which I'm going to be sharing some cool stuff, is how to hack this and make ChatGTP do all the heavy lifting. But understanding in every fucking market in existence, there is already buyer's flow. Sometimes for 10 or 20 years, people have been building companies, okay? So they buy masterminds, they buy courses, they go to trainings, they read books, they build communities. There's associations in your industry. They buy software, they buy tools, sometimes physical tools, especially you guys in the redneck niches. They got the Drill 9000 and the fucking safety harness and the truck and all this kind of shit. And they have events they go to, and they have meetings, and they have conferences, and I guess I mentioned masterminds already. And then they also buy competitor services. They buy Facebook ads and SEO and AdWords. There's no fucking shortage of flow. Your job is not to try and create flow from nothing and knock on enough doors that eventually you get 6 people to buy it. Your job is to identify where the flow is already, and like a sail goes up in the wind, to put your sail up. And I'll tell you, we have personally done this where, like, you know, because in the case Tom asked this, where I'll go speak on a stage where there's already flow, by the way, where there's already buyer flow, just like tapping into the supermarket. And what I found is it's not uncommon to add like $20, $30, $40,000 a month in recurring revenue in 1 fucking hour because you tap into that flow. So I want to encourage you guys, as we do more of this, how to tap into that existing flow and less about like chasing everybody in their goddamn inbox, right? Like you can ask the manager at Zehrs and create a complimentary offer that takes 5 minutes to set up, send 1 message, and immediately you're in the Zehrs flow and you're selling more chocolate than you ever did because there's already established buyer flow. So we're going to be talking more about this, and like I said, I've been figuring out how to use ChatGTP, because the cool thing about ChatGTP is finding all the buyers flow in your market, by the way, is just research. It's just Google searches. What are the conferences in my niche? Who sells Facebook ads? Who sells Google ads? Who sells them websites, right? What books are they reading? What industry associations? By the way, the industry associations have conferences, and they need content from people like you that tell them how to get reviews, that tell them how to run Google ads, all these things. They already have buyers flow up the yin-yang. But the cool thing with ChatGTP is using a plugin called Web ChatGTP, which allows you to search current search results. I found in like 5 or 10 minutes, you can reverse engineer all the fucking buyer flow in a market. And then you have, I'd much rather you guys knock on 1 or 2 doors like Zehrs and less just harass people in their fucking messages. I'm not against harassing. I'll tell you the one thing I've used cold outreach for over the years is when I want to test an offer and I want real honest feedback from people who don't know me and therefore will like give me the real truth about how good the offer is. But having said that, like Why make it hard on yourselves? Identify flow and tap into flow, right? Like there's already shit tons of money. The other thing about this too is, right, is in a recession, do markets shrink or get bigger? And of course they shrink, right? But if you realize this, theirs is 100% connected to the buyers. So if the total buyers in your market go from like 10 or 15% of your market are the buyers to only 5%, you'll still be 100% in the flow of that 5% because you'll be standing in front of all the buyers all day long, right? So if you understand this, you can make your life so much easier and get out of the cold outreach. And then what I do is really the offer for most of these shoe stores is authoritative content. And how I always do this ethically is I show up, give the ideas for free and charge for the implementation. Give the ideas for free and charge for the implementation. So if you do Google reviews, tell people how to get fucking reviews. And for every 10 businesses that hear it, 9 of them will be too busy and will say, can you just do this for me? If you do Google AdWords, show people in your industry how to set up winning Google ads. For every 8 or 9, or for every 10 who see that, 8 or 9 of them are going to be too busy and going to say, can you just do that for me? Charge for the implementation. So it's easy to come up with the content because you just tell people what you do to run ads, how you get them results, those kind of things, and you just make your life so much easier by tapping into that shoe store. That is a big rant, but I swear to God, if you understand this, you can go from like 0 to 100 really quickly. Like for real, you can add $40,000 a month in recurring revenue in 1 fucking hour, and they all come to you. It's expert positioning, and you'll set it up for those people to stay long term. And it's just like, to me, a much smarter way of doing it. And for you specifically, Tom, since you asked that question, I already have all that information available in personal injury. So just let me know and I'll share that document with you. Anybody else who's in that industry, Corey V, my man, Kyle Patnode, if you guys want that, I'm happy to send that to you guys or anybody else who's in our space. Steve says, question, our agency needs to set up a process to qualify prospects and set appointments for clients. Where do I source people to take these calls? What phone service would you use to ring all the appointment takers? Any other input is appreciated. We kind of already had a little chat about this in text, but you mentioned you were actually trying to do this for your clients. But I'm going to answer this question in 2 ways because I'm not just answering this question for you, Steve, simultaneously for other people who are trying to set appointments. And my answer is in one word, don't. Because there are a lot of moving pieces to set appointments. And by the way, the more our society gets busy with messages and ads and text messages and all these kind of things, do you have to work harder to get people's attention, or is it easier? Right? You have to work harder to get people's attention. And that means, like I see this in personal injury lawyers, where they're giving away a free consultation for a service that costs nothing upfront, meaning there's zero financial risk. And they sometimes have to call people 6 times, 7 times, 8 times, 9 times, 10 times, just to be able to get a booked appointment, okay? So if you understand that, it is a lot of work and a lot of moving pieces. What I think is more important for those of you guys who are still doing appointments is one thing, firstly, is a qualified appointment. Are 100 appointments better or 3? On the surface, almost everybody would say 100 are better than 3, but if you get 100 unqualified appointments and 3 like perfect fits, 3 is better than 100. So I don't want you guys to get caught up in sheer numbers. I want you guys to get focused on getting the right people through the door. And one of the best ways you can do that is to identify what makes good clients for you, or in this case, Steve, what makes a good client for your client, and really call that out. So I've realized, like with our retargeting stuff that we're running, clients basically need like 2 things to really succeed at. I would say 3 things. Thing number 1 is they got to have enough traffic to their website for it to work. Thing number 2 is they have to have like good testimonials. And thing number 3 is they have to have good reviews out there on them. So the way we call them out is say, like, this is only going to work for you if you got at least 1,000 visitors a month, you got a few decent testimonial videos, and you got like at least 50 reviews and they're saying good stuff about you. Right? The more you can call out what makes a qualified appointment, and it's usually 1, 2, or maybe 3 conditions that they need to meet. So if you think about the good clients you've had in the past and the bad clients, so for a lot of you guys, you may not realize this, but in most industries, single solo operators usually don't make for good clients. Like if you get one plumber who's an owner operator, they usually don't make for good clients. Same thing if you get a single solo lawyer, same thing. It's single solo e-commerce. It's not that they're bad people. They just make for bad clients for any number of reasons. So I like to call them out if you have at least a staff size of blank, right? But the more you can qualify up front, then you can also simultaneously disqualify people and get less appointments, but more qualified ones. The second thing is we've been doing this in our mastermind now for probably about 6 months, is you can use technology to book people right in. So you say, this is only for you if you're qualified for blank, and then if they say, yeah, I fit those criteria, then you just let them schedule their own calendar, and you use the magic of technology, either Go High Level or Acuity or Calendly or OneSub or some kind of tool like that, to send them reminders to actually show up for their appointment. And what happens is nobody has to speak to them at all to get a booked appointment, because you disqualify the ones that are the wrong fit, and then if they're still left, you say, fill out this calendar and we can go ahead and talk. And then what ends up happening is you don't have to have this mountain of people calling on the phone. All that's required is when somebody says, I'm interested, you say, okay, book here on the calendar. And that's it. So I think that's a smarter way of doing it, because it has way less moving pieces, and those pieces are lifted by technology rather than humans who one day might not wake up and feel like calling people, and one day, they have all kinds of challenges and stuff to do. So I hope that's helpful to you, Steve, or anybody else that's trying to get regular booked appointments. But like qualify/disqualify people hardcore on the front end, and then just let them self-select and book their own appointments themselves. Like, what rule is there that says you have to chase them and all that, when we have calendar apps and they can just pick a time that works for them? And it also, like, it's more pull and less push, which I think is a good thing in our business, and we need more of it. Christian says, is there an AI tool to find micro local influencers with X amount of followers? How do you find all the content creators? As I mentioned, Christian, earlier, we're using ChatGTP and Web ChatGTP to find influencers. I don't think it's important enough to find just influencers by number of followers, because I'll tell you, this is just a little story that illustrates this point. But my man Dan Crystal sent me a referral like 10 years ago, and it was a lady named Amanda who was a fitness model, and in those early days of Instagram, she had 250,000 followers. And I was like, holy shit, that was like more people than I could I had like 2 followers, and one of them was my mother, and this lady had 250,000. And I got asked to help her sell some products, and I was curious. We had some conversations, and I was like, how much are you selling to your following right now? And the answer kind of shocked me, because the answer was 0. And I was like, well, why is it 0? And I looked into it a little deeper, and what I found is she was a fitness model famous for her ass. Right? She had a nice booty. People like going to her Instagram and looking at her booty, and about 99% of the followers weren't people who were considering doing business with her in any way. They were just horny guys who liked looking at her butt. Nothing wrong with that. But what I learned is not all followers are created equal. I would rather have 6 followers who are very serious about doing business with you than 250,000 people who just think you have a nice ass. All right, so I want you to first get out of this idea. It is a good benchmark number of followers, but it's not the total thing. So what we use Web ChatGTP and ChatGTP together is to find out all the shit they're buying. Events, masterminds, conferences, services, etc., books, all those kind of things. And I just tell it, list all the books people are buying. And I use those to identify the influencer. The guy who wrote the book is probably an influencer. The guy who puts on the event is probably an influencer. The guy who sells the training is probably an influencer. The guy who consults for them is probably an influencer. The guy who sells ads, or the gal. Just making the point, though, that identify them by their buyer flow. You'll make your life easier. Josh says, what are you putting in place to become the leading authority in your niche? I don't know if I'm actually trying to become the leading authority. I'm well past those kind of delusions of grandeur. For me personally, I'm not trying to become the leading authority, but to become a leading authority, which is probably a different thing than the leading authority. I'm a big believer in get in front of buyer's flow and put authoritative content in front of those people, because it's a much better pull system. And the way I mentioned that I do this earlier, that anybody can do this, is if you understand that 90% of the buyers in your industry are hiring people because they're too busy to do it themselves, and or they don't want to manage it in-house. Like, why do you hire a Facebook ads person? Because I'm too busy to manage Facebook ads myself, and I don't want to fucking learn Facebook ads, right? This is where 90% of businesses are. So, like, a lot of times I hear people say, what I do is I just give away my best ideas. And people go, oh, but they might steal it, and they might do that. And like 10% of people will steal your ideas and go. And usually, by the way, those people will thank you anyway. But what I do is I give away the ideas for free and I charge for the implementation. This means, by the way, like let's say, for example, you run Facebook ads for HVAC and plumbers, okay? Well, you can go to their industry association and say, like, I put together a training that shows people how to write really badass Facebook ads and everything that's working in HVAC right now, and I'd love to just give it to your people. And you don't have to hold a single thing back. You can show them the targeting, the ads, the images, all of that. And what will happen at the end of that is people will say, that's really cool. Can you just do that for me? Because I don't want to do any of those things you just described. Can you just do it for me? In fact, the ultimate example I've seen of this, there's an agency that has hit the Inc. 500 fastest growing, like, I don't know, like 5, 6, 7 years in a row. It's run by a friend of mine named Sean Buck called The Newsletter Pro. Sean Buck wrote a book with Dan Kennedy. And I've actually emceed a couple of times and at our own events introduced Sean Buck. And his product is they send out physical newsletters to clients in the mail to help a couple of different niches. They do it obviously in personal injury lawyers to help them get more referrals. And his entire like 30-minute presentation is he gives away the entire newsletter for free. He shows you what articles to write, what to say, how to thank people, what goes here, what goes there, everything that's needed to include it, things they found that works the best, who to get them printed, what colors to use, how to put your branding. And what happens is, inevitably, at the end of it, people come up and say, that sounds great, Sean. Can you just do that for me? And he says yes. And it's not unusual for Sean to add $50,000 a month in recurring revenue from 1 hour talk. All right. So for most of you guys, if you want to become the leading authority in your niche, identify where the buyer flow is, put authoritative content in front of them. I've never found a better system than that. There are lots of ways to get clients, so I'm not saying like Facebook ads don't work. Facebook ads work fucking awesome. I'm not saying don't do TikTok ads. We run YouTube ads in our agency. I think actually the best thing is a multi-pronged approach, but I'm telling you the best clients you'll ever get will be getting in front of the buyer's flow, putting authoritative content in front of them, and it's all pull. They'll come to you. In fact, another agency friend of mine, Seth, who is also an Inc. 5000 fastest growing agency, and they've built their agency up to $40 million, by the way, like $3 or $4 million a month, I would say. I think closer to 4. And anyway, what they do is they go to events and masterminds, and they find the ringleader, and they say, can I pay you $5,000 or $10,000 to just give a presentation, and all I'm going to do is just give them all value and tell them how we're dominating SEO these days, and if they want our help, they can ask about it at the end, but I'm going to give them value whether or not they want it. Are you cool with that? And almost always the ringleader says yes. They charge $10,000 per month for SEO. They almost always get a couple of clients out of every presentation they make, and that's their whole business model. They got probably, I would say, 3 or 4, somewhere between 3 and 500 actually, across the different niches, clients who pay them $10,000 per month for SEO, and their whole business model is find where the buyers are, put authoritative content in front of them. So I'm a big believer that's the best way to make yourself an authority in your niche. Cool thing is this can be done digitally in 5 minutes. You can go in, find out who's putting on an event or conference, reach out to them, say, hey, I had a content idea based around the service you already deliver, and then just give it away. And what will happen inevitably is people will watch it and say, hey, that sounds really cool. Can you just do that for me? And for real, you can sign 5, 10, 15, 20 clients at once doing that, and people will request more of it. That's the amazing thing. In fact, the first time I saw this done, I actually watched a couple of guys who sell TV ads for personal injury lawyers sell $3 million worth of services in 1 hour webinar, and I was pretty blown away that you could add $3 million per year in an hour, but it really stretched my sense of possibility. So I'm not saying like don't outreach or don't do TikTok ads or don't do YouTube ads or Facebook ads. To a certain extent, we do at least some of those things, but I've never found anything better that works than that formula. And I think like everybody can do that in any niche. It's super easy to do. Evan says, how much did you spend on your first website? Zero, Evan, because I had $0 to my name to spend on a website. Other than like, I guess I spent like $8 on the domain names. You could get a domain name for under $10 those days, and hosting for like $1.99 or whatever. Just to share you guys a laugh of the things that happened. So in those days, I was trying to create a landing page or a squeeze page, as they were often called in internet marketing circles, but I didn't know how to do it, and there weren't tools like ClickFunnels and Go High Level, and I use Lead Pages. There's also like Unbounce, and there's dozens and dozens of these tools, but they didn't exist. So what I ended up doing is I stumbled onto a guy who had a financial sales page and an opt-in form, and it looked exactly like I wanted. So I copied and pasted the whole thing. It was done in custom programmed HTML, which I knew nothing about, and I copied and pasted it. So what ended up happening is I didn't know how to edit HTML, but I went into the text editor and I could see where his text was, and I replaced it with mine, and I put it up. And about a couple of days later, I got a really angry message from the financial newsletter guy who said, "Fuck you, you stole our fucking website, you motherfucking..." You could like tell he was really pissed off. And what had happened, unknown to me, is he had tracking code in his site header to track all his visitors. And so when I copied the page, I also copied the tracking code. And I had no idea, right? So I was screwing up all his numbers and all his shit without really knowing it. And he was really, really mad at me. And I just apologized to the guy and said, like, it's really a compliment. I thought your squeeze page was fucking awesome. And so I wanted to copy it and use it as our own. And I didn't know how to make it any other way. So I copied and pasted. I had no idea that tracking code was even a thing, or that you had it on your website. Like, I don't know what else to say, but sorry, dude. And then he wrote me a long apology, and we ended up becoming like friends for a little bit. I don't know what ended up happening to the guy. We kind of lost touch years back, but I don't know. It was just one of those things. So having said that, for those of you guys who are looking to build websites, like, it's only gotten exponentially easier. You can take a WordPress website. There's tools like Wix. You can use any number of landing page softwares. I think if you spend more than probably like 10 hours building your first website, like, you're doing something wrong. So for those of you guys, like, I see too many people in the beginning stages where they get caught up with making their website perfect and adjusting the bells and whistles and moving their logo around. But if your website has no traffic and nobody's looking at it, you're fucked. So that's why I mentioned earlier, identify the buyer's flow, put authoritative content in front of it. You can for real, like, I'm not bullshitting you guys when I tell you, you can go from anywhere from like $0 to like 10, 15, 20, 40, $50,000 a month. In fact, a few people, who have polished presentations in my industry, Stephen Fairley told me, like, we were having a private chat. He's a big player in our industry space. And one of the things he said is, originally, when I started speaking, I did it for free just so I could get speaking gigs. And then he said, what ended up happening is over time, I got good at it, and people started paying me anywhere from like $5,000 to $25,000 to speak, plus my expenses. He said, now that I've come full circle, I like to do it all for free again. And he said the reason is because I make all my money from the sales at the back of the room. For me, it's more important to get a big audience of the right people than it is to get paid for speaking. He said, I average, and this was just like a private conversation between us, but he said, I average about $450,000 in sales every time I do an hour speech. I want you guys to think about that. Like, an hour later, he's added almost $500,000. Now, this is polished and practice, and he's given the same speech lots of time, but I just want you guys to understand what's possible. And in our world, this can be done entirely digitally. You can tap into other people's buyer's flow with webinars and free trainings and videos and things like that. But just imagine, you speak, an hour later, there's almost $500,000 in the bank, right? Like, that's the sense of possibility when you guys really understand this methodology, what can really, really be done. Obviously, Stephen Fairley's an OG, and you probably won't do $450,000 on your first one. But if you stick with it, of like putting authoritative content in front of buyer's flow, like, it never not works. It always works. It's the first thing I do in almost every business we go into, because I'm a big fan of it. The biggest reason people don't do it is they're thinking too small. I see this now. So where I'm at in the city of La Paz, Mexico, there is a subculture of like ultra wealthy people. So I see like $10-20 million yachts go by, and somebody has like a 3-story apartment building on a boat, basically, where it's got like multiple living rooms and bedrooms, and there's a private chef. And I have friends here who are struggling to make money, and they go, hey, I'm trying to walk dogs, but people will only pay me $1.50 an hour to walk dogs. Maybe if I get like 500 dogs, I can afford to like, pay my rent this month. And almost always people are thinking too small in this agency space in the same way, where they're like, man, if I just walk a gazillion dogs for $1.50, they're not thinking like, how can I get in front of that buyer's flow and add $400,000 in the next hour? And they also don't believe it's possible for them, so they avoid doing big, powerful steps forward. But I'm a big believer, if you guys do that, you'll make your life so much easier. So I think that's all we got for questions. I don't know if you guys have any questions you want to throw in. Just a little announcement I mentioned at the beginning. We're filling up the mastermind slowly but surely for this year. And it's been amazing. I love the transformation I see out of guys, especially the ones who, like, for real, the ones who show up committed and like show up to every call. Like, it's very, very rare they don't have their life turned around, where they have new insights and realizations, where they can identify where the money is, how to go get it. They put better offers in front of people. Their deliverables are more leveraged. I see people, we've had a few people like come to mind, like I mentioned earlier, who, when they started out, were trying to sell $500 per month services and struggling, and now don't take clients at less than $100,000 per year, and have more clients at the $100,000 mark than they did at the $500 per mark, and they're easier than the ones that they were charging way less, which has so much more to do with who they're helping and less to do with what they're doing. And those kind of transformation. Then I see people build systems and teams. So if you guys are interested in checking that out, let me know. And or actually, the best thing you can do is go to beyondagencyprofits.com/wolfpack. There's a little video that shows you just what it's all about, what's included, what's not included, so you guys can get a feel for that. And I hope you check it out, because I'm like, for me, like, part of the reason I do this, obviously, is like there's a monetary benefit for doing it, but I'll tell you, there's a lot of other things I could do for money other than this. And what I love about it is seeing you guys invest in yourselves and then like change your lives in like profound fucking ways, in ways that can never be taken from you, in ways where you like learn a skill set that's like permanent, where it's not just life changing for the immediate year, but like 30 years down the road. You're connected in those things, and you really understand the game and all of that at a much, much deeper level. So if you guys are interested in that, check that out, beyondagencyprofits.com/wolfpack. And that's all I got for you guys. Much, much love. May the force be with you, and hope you guys have an awesome Monday.